I don't want to talk about a revolution. Not a revolution where we march on Washington. Not a revolution of guns. Not a revolution of anything, but simply the mind and the heart. We call this service revolution because we want to change the world. And the world has been changed many, many times. But it's not very often it's changed with love. There are conquerors, there are kings, there are presidents, there are monarchs. There are all kinds of people wanting to change the world, but none of them longing to change the world with love. That's our cause. That's our cause. You see, what had happened with the Hebrew people is they began to develop laws. They began to define kings out of their own people. And with this came traditions. They wanted a way of living as opposed to living the way. They came from this place where God called them out of everything they were in. He called them into His presence. They walked away, but they took the rules and regulations with them, which doesn't seem to make sense to me. Isaiah addresses this. In Isaiah chapter 1, he says, "Quit your worship charades. I can't stand your trivial religious games." This is from the Message. Your monthly conferences, your weekly services, your special meetings, your meetings. I can't stand one more. Meetings for this and meetings for that. I hate them. You've worn me out. I'm sick of your religion. Well, you go right on sinning. When you put on your next prayer performance, I'll be looking the other way. No matter how long or loud or often you pray, I won't be listening. And do you know why? Because you've been tearing people to pieces. There's blood on your hands. Go home and wash yourselves. Clean yourselves. Sweep your lives clean of evil doings, so I do not have to look at them any longer. Say no to wrong, learn to do good, work for justice, help the down and out, stand up for the homeless, and go to bat for the defenseless. This is what God told His people. God, every single day, that He didn't give up because I wasn't worth forgiving, because trust me, I wasn't. I was raised in a pastor's home. I know right and wrong. I've known right and wrong for as long as I've known anything. And yet I sin on a daily basis. I find myself in sin. I'm a hypocrite, the worst of all sinners. And yet God brings me back into His presence every time I ask. God forgives me of my sins every time I ask, no matter how many times I sin. This amazes me. I think God, like the story I told you about the Hebrews, the Christians went through the same thing. Jesus came back. God, the King of Kings, the one who created all things, the one who made the moon and the stars, the one who raised the first day and will set it on the last, the one who knows all things and is all things. And there's nothing that really exists without Him. He's in every atom. This God wrapped Himself in flesh. This God became a man. And He died for my sins. But what happened was the apostles watched Him ascend into heaven, and they were so full of pure hope, so full of this pure new religion of love that Jesus taught. And from there, the apostles began to die as people got old. Most of them killed. Their followers Circumcision was the law. Circumcision was the one thing that made a Jew a Jew. Was the one thing that separated, not the one thing, but the biggest thing that separated God's people from the rest of the world. And Paul was saying, the things that separate you are nothing if faith isn't expressing itself through love. John 4:17, it talks about the perfection in God's love. Our love is made perfect through God, so that we don't have to fear anymore when the day of judgment comes, because we know through our love we've lived like Christ. I know this is a short message. It's not intended to be long. But the one verse that I wanted to bring out is Corinthians 13. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal, just an annoyance to this world. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-serving. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put childish things behind me. Now we see a poor reflection as in a mirror. But then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. But these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these, and this is in the Bible, the greatest of these is love. The greatest thing we could ever have, the greatest thing we could ever possess. Beyond all the gifts, beyond all the power in the world, beyond anything, is simply to love. The Bible says in John that God is love. And if we do not know love, we cannot know God. Which leads me to believe, if God is love, if we do not show love, we do not show God. I hope it sickens you as much as it sickens me to realize that there's a generation who have grown up on Christmas stories. There's a generation who have grown up on stories from the Bible, who have heard about Noah and the whale, who have heard about Jonah and the whale, who have heard about Noah and the flood, who have heard about all sorts of Bible stories, but have never once been told they are loved. We have preachers that will stand on the street corners and scream out, "You will go to hell if you don't turn away." But they never scream out, "I love you with everything in me, with everything I have, with everything I will ever possess. I love you." I have yet to hear a preacher on the street cry out to a lost generation, "I love you." That's the only thing that can save the lost. If we abide by all the rules, if we walk strictly in all the regulations, if we see the line and we walk on it, circumcision or no circumcision, it doesn't matter. Because if faith doesn't express itself through love, we are nothing. We are nothing.